Most wars begin long before the battlefield is drawn. They start in the unseen spaces, in the quiet exchange of glances, in the whispers that shift through crowded rooms, in the way power moves before it even speaks. This is the terrain where real dominance is established, not through violence, but through the fear of what might happen. Before any enemy takes aim, their instinct has already begun calculating retreat. In this space, the outcome is shaped not by strength, but by perception. You don't wait for conflict. You design a world where conflict fears to approach you. This begins with the way people interpret your silence. They don't hear peace in it. They hear consequence. You walk into a room and say nothing, yet discomfort spreads. People glance, then look away. They remember what they've heard, not from you, but about you. You don't need to raise your voice. They're already hearing the echoes of what happens when you do. As Machiavelli warned, it is much safer to be feared than loved. If one has to do without one of the two, the moment they believe that harming you leads to ruin, they disarm themselves out of necessity. You've seen it. The way someone hesitates before speaking your name. The way others lower their voices when telling stories about how you responded the last time someone overstepped. You aren't building a reputation. You're building a warning label. People don't just remember your actions. They remember the aftermath. What happened next? Who disappeared? Who lost everything? And more importantly, how calm you were while it unfolded. The best kind of war is one that never begins, because it doesn't need to. The threat of your response hangs heavier than any actual retaliation. And so you plant seeds deliberately. You allow small slights to occur in public, but your response is never impulsive. It is calculated, delayed, delivered when it hurts most. You punish in silence, but make sure the story travels. One carefully timed humiliation, one removal from favor, one quiet downfall. You never explain. That's what makes it work. They expect rage, and when they don't see it, they panic. Because people understand anger. It's visible. It peaks and fades. But silence builds. It consumes certainty. It forces them to imagine the scale of what's coming. That's when they start folding from within. Because imagination is more terrifying than proof. You use that. You never attack directly. You let their mind attack itself. And in this space, before anything begins, you win. Not by acting, but by preparing the stage so thoroughly that no one else dares to step on it. You orchestrate the environment. You control the narrative before it's written. Every choice you make, every gesture, is engineered to influence interpretation. You allow one battle, but you destroy the opponent so thoroughly that it becomes a lesson. Not just for them, but for every witness. And that lesson travels faster than any army. Do you understand what that means? It means you never chase power. You make it orbit around you. People offer you peace not because they want peace, but because they don't want war with you. You didn't beg for their respect. You didn't demand it. You became too dangerous to disrespect. And that's where the shift occurs. Now your silence is no longer seen as weakness. It's interpreted as calculation, and the fear of what you might do next becomes your strongest weapon. You don't need to raise armies. Your name becomes your army. And when you walk away from a conflict, it's not retreat, it's choreography. You withdraw on your terms. You disappear when it benefits you. And you reappear when the silence has done enough damage. This is the war before the war, the battlefield of perception. And here's the final truth. Those who win in this space never need to fight at all, because by the time a fight could begin, No one wants it anymore, not because you made peace, but because you made war seem inevitable and survival seem unlikely. Most people live inside patterns. They seek consistency, not because it's powerful, but because it's comfortable. The moral man repeats himself. The just man becomes trapped by his own fairness. Their routines are admired and then used against them. Predictability is not a virtue. It is a blueprint, one that enemies read long before the first strike. You think your consistency makes you trustworthy. It doesn't. It makes you vulnerable. The moment someone can predict your reaction, they can control it. You've already given away the ending. When you always forgive, they learn to offend without fear. When you never retaliate, they escalate. You believe you're building character, but in their eyes, you're constructing a map, one they will use to navigate your destruction. It starts when they test you. Just once, a small offense, a subtle boundary push, and when you respond exactly as they expected, they smile inside. Because now they know how far they can go. They know what triggers you, what pacifies you, what makes you retreat. You are no longer a threat. You are a formula, and people don't respect formulas. They exploit them. Here's the truth. You've been playing fair in a game where the rules are written in blood. You explain yourself. You justify your calm. You repeat your principles like they protect you. They don't. They expose you. Because anyone who clings to moral consistency is at war with reality. And as Machiavelli wrote, a man who wishes to act entirely up to his professions of virtue soon meets with what destroys him among so much that is evil. The more virtuous you appear, the more predictable your weaknesses become. The more predictable you become, the more disposable you are. Now think about the people you fear, truly fear. Are they moral or are they unreadable? Their silence disturbs you. Their gestures confuse you. You never know if they'll respond with grace or cruelty. That's what keeps you alert. That's what makes them dangerous. They don't signal their intentions. They disrupt patterns. They praise you and then vanish. They forgive you and then punish you when you've already let your guard down. You stay cautious, not because of what they've done, but because of what they might do. That's power. That's presence. You need to become that. You need to rupture your own rhythm. Give people just enough predictability to make them guess wrong. Punish after mercy. Praise, and then withdraw. Shift tones. Mid-conversation. Let your decisions contradict expectations, not randomly, but deliberately. The goal is not to be chaotic. The goal is to be unreadable. When no one can predict your next move, no one can prepare for it. And when they begin hesitating around you, that's when control begins. People are only bold when the outcome is safe. But when you've broken every pattern, they stall, they calculate, they defer. Because now, silence is threat. Now, your absence is felt more deeply than your presence. You are no longer a person they can manage. You've become an equation they can't solve. This is the weapon, not anger, not violence, not status. The weapon is unpredictability. When you become untraceable, their plans collapse before they begin. They talk less around you. They move slower. They second-guess every word. And you haven't done anything. Not yet. That's the brilliance of it. Victory without conflict. Authority without explanation. Power without effort. But it only works if you sever the need to be understood. Stop explaining your silence. Stop apologizing for contradictions. Stop defending your shifts in behavior. Predictability is for the insecure. You are not here to be safe. You are here to be obeyed. When they can't map your responses, they stop trying to provoke them. That's when you win. Before a single word is spoken, before a single battle is fought, you will be misunderstood. Let them misunderstand. You will be called inconsistent. Let them whisper. What matters is that when they face you, they hesitate. And in that hesitation, you've already won. In most hierarchies, the figure at the top absorbs the most attention and the most risk. Authority draws eyes. Visibility draws enemies. The higher one climbs in status, the clearer the target becomes. Power, when exposed, invites resistance. But there is another position, one that wields influence without absorbing the cost of command. And it's not occupied by the leader. It's held by the one behind him. You've been conditioned to chase recognition, to be seen as strong, smart, capable. But every time they see your hands, they begin planning how to break them. You mistake attention for authority. You think being visible makes you important. It doesn't. It makes you vulnerable. Because once they know where the influence is coming from, they will surround it, study it, and then slowly begin to isolate it. You don't need to be the leader to control the outcome. You only need the leader to move the way you want. The key is separation between what you want and who they believe it came from. When your influence becomes invisible, no one can push back. They don't even know they're being guided. And when they finally act, they believe it was their idea. No rebellion ever forms when people feel free. This is why the most dangerous people never take credit. They don't lead revolutions. They whisper into the ear of the one who does. They don't speak in public. They plant the idea in someone else's voice. As Machiavelli advised, princes should avoid direct blame by acting through intermediaries whenever possible. When the blowback comes, it hits the puppet, not the puppeteer. You remain untouched because no one ever saw you move. To use this power, you must step away from the spotlight, not because you lack strength, but because you understand the cost of exposure. Let others play the role of commander. Feed them confidence. Praise their leadership. Then shape their decisions in silence. Offer a suggestion they believe they discovered. Frame a choice so they walk into it willingly. The more they think they own the idea, the deeper your control becomes. And when things go wrong, they take the fall, not you. When rivals attack, they swing at the figurehead, not the ghost. This is how kings are undone without lifting a blade. Influence works best when it's divorced from identity. The less you are seen, the more they believe the world moves on its own. And when no one suspects your presence, you are free to shape everything. You must teach others to echo your thoughts without realizing it, not through commands, but through seated beliefs. Let them adopt your logic as their own. Let them fight for what you planted. The more you remove your fingerprints, the more you can operate without limit. Confrontation is a risk. Orchestration is control. When you lead without being known, you cannot be opposed. So stay in the shadows. Operate through loyal surrogates. Make others feel powerful in public and guide them in private. This isn't humility. It's calculation. Visibility is noise. Real control is silent. You don't need the credit. You only need the outcome. They'll celebrate their victories, but you'll own them. And in the end, when they look for who made the decisions, they'll never see you. You were never in the room, but the room was always yours. When communication breaks, it doesn't vanish. It transforms. Silence becomes the message. In every relationship, negotiation, or conflict, those who speak the most reveal the most. But those who control the silence control the tension. This imbalance creates a vacuum, and nature, especially human nature, cannot tolerate a vacuum without trying to fill it. That's when mistakes happen. You don't realize how loud you've been until you taste the power of restraint. When you go quiet, something strange happens. People begin to unravel. They reach for explanations, interpretations, excuses, not because you accused them, but because your silence made them accuse themselves. You didn't ask a question, but they're already answering. You didn't threaten, but they're already defending, because nothing disorients the manipulative, the aggressive, or the insecure more than calm, deliberate silence. Silence is not weakness. It's an engineered pressure chamber. Every second you don't respond, the tension grows, and the one who's hiding something will feel it first. They'll fidget, they'll rationalize, they'll overshare, because silence forces them to confront their own mind. And most people don't like what's there. You don't have to push them. Just leave them alone with themselves long enough, and they'll start to crack. You've seen it in arguments. The louder they get, the more control they lose. So stay quiet, not out of fear, but out of design. Give them nothing to fight. Let their own assumptions devour them. As Machiavelli knew, power lies not in noise, but in quiet tension. Noise is emotional. Noise is messy. But silence is surgical. It exposes weakness with precision. And that's why it works. Because people can't sit still in uncertainty. They interpret your silence as a message. And they invent that message themselves. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're planning something. Maybe you're disappointed. It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what they project. And the more insecure they are, the darker their assumptions become. This is why in conflict, your weapon isn't a sharper word. It's a longer pause. Speak only when the silence has reached its peak. Let them feel the weight of your stillness. Let them lean forward. Search your face. Fill in the blanks. And when you finally respond, they'll already be off balance. Not because you hit first, but because they were swinging in the dark. Use silence as your signature. Let it precede you. Let it follow you. Let it become the thing they fear more than your words. When you pause before answering, people listen more carefully. When you wait just long enough, people begin to confess. They assume you're disappointed. They assume you know more than you've said. And in trying to manage that assumption, they show their cards. Train yourself to be still, especially when provoked. Don't justify. Don't defend. Don't explain. Just observe. When someone tries to manipulate you, answer with silence. When someone attacks, let your quiet be the mirror that shows them their own aggression. They'll squirm under it because they expected chaos and got calm. Soon, your silence will gain a reputation, not because you use it often, but because you use it well. It will signal consequence. It will signal calculation. And when they hear nothing from you, they'll feel everything they fear. That's when silence becomes more than absence. It becomes dominance. Because in a world that's always speaking, the one who chooses not to controls the ones who can't stop. Power rarely announces itself through confrontation. In most hierarchies, the greatest manipulations occur behind calm smiles and quiet promotions. When threats are obvious, they're easy to eliminate. But the more subtle danger lies in resentment left to fester. Rivals who remain in the shadows, sharpening their envy. The art isn't in crushing opposition. It's in reshaping it. You've been taught to eliminate threats. But that's predictable. Anyone can attack what they fear. What they can't do is convert it. Most enemies expect war, but not assimilation. That's where your real leverage begins. The moment you stop seeing opposition as something to destroy and start seeing it as something to use, you step out of reaction and into control. The enemy who fears you is a problem. The enemy who serves you unknowingly is a masterpiece. Don't aim for obedience. Aim for dependency. When someone depends on you to survive, to thrive, or to matter, their aggression decays. You don't need their affection. You need their hunger, their ambition, their need to be seen, to be useful, to feel powerful. Once you identify it, feed it. Give them the illusion of inclusion, a title, a task, a role. Not because you value them, but because the leash tightens best when it's worn willingly. You'll see it happen. The ones who once undermined you, they'll start to perform for you. Not because they've changed, but because they've been rerouted. You gave them a lane to run in, and they took it, thinking it was theirs. This is not forgiveness. This is engineering. As Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than loved. If one cannot be both, but it is best to be needed, because when someone needs you more than they resent you, you own them. Never announce this shift. Let it unfold in silence. Treat your former rivals with visible respect, not warmth, but purpose. Make them believe they've earned a seat, even if it was always part of your design. Their ego will do the rest. Pride convinces people they've climbed the ladder on merit. But the truth is, you held it steady while they ascended into your trap. You gave them their role, their purpose, their identity. And now, they won't rebel. They'll protect the very system that once threatened them. The longer this illusion continues, the deeper it roots. They begin to defend you in rooms you never enter. They promote your vision without realizing it. They silence others who question your authority, not because you asked, but because you rewired their incentives. You replaced their resentment with reward, and in chasing that reward, they buried their rebellion. But never give them full access. Keep a layer of distance. Let them feel close, but not equal. Let them touch your power, but never hold it. Because once someone believes they've arrived, they stop striving, and that's when old envy returns. So keep them reaching. Feed their ambition in controlled doses. Praise them when they serve your interest. Reprimand them gently when they stray. Make your approval a currency, one they must constantly earn. This is how rulers keep enemies in plain sight, not as threats, but as tools. It's not mercy, it's method. Conversion is slower than conquest, but infinitely more stable. The defeated rise again. The converted defend the throne they once wanted to overthrow. Because over time, memory fades, and those who once opposed you will forget they ever did. That's the brilliance. That's the trap. So stop seeking revenge. Seek leverage. Stop trying to silence your enemies. Let them speak, but only through your voice. Let them act, but only in your interest. Let them rise, but only on paths you've paved. That is not forgiveness. That is mastery. Because the enemy who kneels is not the safest. The one who kneels and believes they chose to is the one who will never stand again. Most people react to threat, not strategy. They guard against visible danger, but rarely against the silent observer. In social hierarchies, the one who looks ambitious becomes a target, while the one who appears passive walks unnoticed. This blindness to subtlety is what allows the hidden blade to succeed where open force fails. You've been told to show strength, but strength invites resistance. The more power you display, the more enemies align. Every success breeds opposition, but the moment you stop reaching, stop pushing, stop performing, they look away. And that's when the most dangerous moves become possible. The most dangerous strike is the one no one saw coming. Not because it was fast, but because they never suspected you. You've felt the need to prove yourself. That need is a liability. It makes you loud. It makes you obvious. But the game favors the quiet. Let others speak. Let them dominate the room. While they expose their desires, you collect data. Their pride becomes your cover. Their noise becomes your silence. And behind that silence, your plan grows. Unseen, undisturbed. You don't win by looking powerful. You win by looking like nothing at all. The harmless smile, the forgettable comment, the clumsy misstep. These are weapons when used deliberately. As Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." You appear foolish just long enough to watch the real fools reveal themselves. And when they do, you strike. Not twice, just once. Precisely. But patience is the key. Strike too early, and they see the blade. Strike too late, and the moment passes. You wait. Not because you're weak, but because you're calculating. Every insult, every dismissal, every doubt they cast on you becomes another inch of rope they wrap around themselves. And when the moment is right, you pull. Never warn them. Never explain. The power is in their shock. It paralyzes. When they thought you were unremarkable, and you act with precision, they lose more than position. They lose understanding. They question their own judgment. And that confusion is your insurance. So hide your ambition. Downplay your intelligence. Smile when dismissed. Fumble on purpose. Let them laugh. Let them lower their guard. Because you don't need recognition. You need advantage. Let them walk blind into your reach. And when they finally see the blade, it will already be too late. In every group, there is always one figure who holds power without demand. Not because of rank or voice or aggression, but because others feel it. They hesitate before speaking, monitor their tone, glance over more than once. It is not fear of punishment. It is fear of being seen. That fear is created not by words, but by presence. You've been taught to express, to speak up, to explain yourself when challenged. But the moment you do, you lower yourself. You give your enemies something to grab, to question, to twist. They look into your noise for cracks. They don't fear words. They fear what they don't understand. And when you stop explaining, they stop feeling safe. Your silence unnerves them. They'll provoke you, not to win, but to make you react, to prove that you're human, that you feel doubt, that you bleed like they do. But when you sit still, when you hold eye contact without flinching, when you give them nothing, their fear grows. It's not rage they sense. It's something colder, something harder to defeat. You don't need to argue. You don't need to assert. You need only exist in a way that cannot be dismissed. Your stillness, your lack of emotional display, it creates a mirror. And in that mirror, they see themselves. Every weakness, every insecurity, every hunger for approval. As Machiavelli put it, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But true fear isn't created by threats. It's created by mystery. You create that mystery by refusing to explain, by being the one who doesn't react when others panic, the one who doesn't interrupt when insulted, the one whose silence feels heavier than anyone else's shouting. Presence is not a performance. It's an absence of doubt, of desperation, of emotional leakage. When you embody stillness, others adjust to you. They speak less. They soften their tone. They offer answers before you ask. They apologize without knowing why. You haven't said a word, but you've won the interaction, and they don't know how. So you stop chasing understanding. You stop correcting misinterpretations. You stop trying to win arguments because you've already won, not through logic, not through intimidation, but through gravity. The loudest one in the room is never the most feared. It's the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't speak, and never explains.